I think probably most people like me, you just think that you're not good enough. Just everything that's imperfect about you, you think is going to be a glaring excuse to refuse you. People say, can you really love the children if they're not from you and they're not your own? And I always say that love is thicker than blood.
I think the experience was as if I brought my baby home, and I went through all of that feeling of motherhood, and I can't imagine life without him.
And welcome to another lovely show with us here on Voxafrica. Hey Cordelia, how are you, my dear? It's really good to see you.
Good. Where have you been? I haven't seen you in such a long time.
I'm here. I'm alive and I'm here. Yes.
So good to have you. Good to have you back with us. Welcome.
Thank you, my dear. Beautiful Dada. How are you?
Hello.
It's good to see you, my dear. And it's good to be back here on Voxafrica to do the Ladies Lounge. And today we are totally honoured as ladies to have the wonderful guest with us, Azumah. And as today our topic is talking about adoption, I'd love to introduce our special guest today. Azumah, welcome to Ladies Lounge.
Thank you. It's good to be here with you.
Oh, thank you for joining us. It's really good to have someone like yourself who can actually speak on the topic as personal to them, because we find that, you know, in our community it could be taboo or people misunderstand it. But as we're talking about adoption, what does adoption mean to you and why is it so important to you?
It's important because I think we know from statistics and general information that there are Black children in the care system who need and want to be part of loving families, but they're left there. It takes much longer for them to become adopted, and that's terrible because it has such a negative impact on their life chances. So I think it's important from that broad point of view, but also very important from a personal point of view. It's something that I wanted to do, or me and my partner wanted to do.
And what was that trigger point that made you say, or between you, both of you, because I'm sure you both had different reasons, but what was that trigger point that after, I'm sure it wasn't, you didn't wake up and say, I want to adopt. It was something that played on you for quite a while, but what was that main trigger point you said, right, we've definitely got to do this, I can't sleep on it no more?
Well, to be honest with you, it was something that was always in the back of both of our minds that we wanted to do, but it was actually a friend of mine, a very good school friend of mine, adopted a little girl, and before that time I'd sort of dismissed it as just, oh, you know, we're too old, or, you know, we're too set in our ways, or, you know, this would be such a complicated process, I don't think we can ever go through it. And then when I saw my friend with her little girl, exactly the same age as me and everything, I just thought, okay, well, yeah, maybe this is something that we can do. So that was the trigger. The desire had always been there, but the actual getting on with it and doing it was really triggered by my very good friend.
Right. So have you got any children of your own?
No, I don't. No.
Was that planned or it just turned out like that?
I think it turned out like that. It's just, you know how it is. You put things off, you put things off, you put things off. And then I was unwell for a while, and all of these different things just meant it's just not how life shaped up for us. It wasn't a major tragedy. It's just, and we were quite happy being a couple on our own, you know, without children. But we're also very happy to be with my son.
Right.
Also. So can you just explain to our viewers, for instance, what your cultural background is? Because some people may think, oh, Africans are like this, or West Indians are like this, or British Black people are like this in terms of that. What is your cultural background and how does that play into the decision making of adopting?
Well, my cultural background is Black British. I'm born and brought up in the UK. My family are from the Caribbean, from Jamaica, and my husband is from Ghana. And I think certainly for Ghana more so than Jamaica, that I think in that context, adoption is a very normal, everyday thing. Nobody would bat an eyelid at you saying that you're bringing up this person, but this is not your birth child. It would be a very natural thing to do. I guess the difference in that context is that you don't necessarily go through all the kind of paperwork and processes and legal frameworks that you go through in the UK. For the Caribbean, I guess I'm born and brought up here, so it's harder for me to say what would happen in the Caribbean. I can certainly say that my family were very accepting of it. All my nieces and nephews, there's, nobody in the family has been in any way surprised or thrown by it.
How old was your son when he was adopted?
He was 3. He just turned 3, Kwame. So yes, a cute baby little thing.
I'm getting emotional just listening right now.
I know.
Imagine.
How old is he now?
He's now 6.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
going on. He'll be 7 in December, as he likes to remind us on a daily basis.
Oh, bless his heart and soul.
I'm sure everyone, as well as me, will want to hear how it has been. Well, I don't want to fast forward too much. Maybe you should take us through the process of adopting him first.
Well, it's a lengthy process, and if you want to do that, that's something that you should prepare yourself for. But that's not, I don't think that's a bad thing. It's an important thing that you're doing. And I think that there are lots of children in the system, the care system, who bring lots of difficulties with them, inevitably. Just the mere fact of being adopted, being removed from your birth family is traumatic. It's traumatic being with some of the families, and then changing your home in that way is a very difficult thing for a child to experience. And so there are lots of children who bring really quite complex needs with them, emotional needs, physical needs, various things. So you spend, I think it probably took us about 2 years from the moment we phoned up social services and said we would like to adopt till the moment that Kwame moved into our home. And those 2 years, you go through various courses, you sit down, you have a social worker who sits with both of us for, I don't know, maybe about 6 months or something every week for a long time, and goes through every aspect of your life. You do various training courses where you look at what the needs and the experiences of young people can be. It is very complex, but it's also really important that you get matched with a child whose needs you can adopt. I mean, if you know that you could never ever work with a child who let's say is a very fussy eater, as some children are, but you know that in your family fussy eating just doesn't work. People get given their food, they eat it, they enjoy it, and that is the end of it. And then you've got some child who comes in who wants to look at the colour of every kind of little thing and separate the stew from the rice or the yam, and doesn't want them touching. So that's the kind of detail that they will go in with you. Or you have a child who's been traumatized by parents who shouted all the time, and between the two of you, whenever you get annoyed, shouting is the first thing that you do, and then you calm down and everything is okay. Well, if you've got a child who's been in a family where shouting led to violence, you would have a child that couldn't live with that family, would find it really disturbing and really difficult. So that's the kind of really detailed account of who you are and what you're like and what child will fit with you that they'll go through, and it's necessary. And I have to say that it's worked, because Kwame has come into our home and fits in perfectly. To the point, it's almost quite funny, because if my husband and I start arguing, he gets right into the middle of us. And he'll start saying, "Don't shout at my mummy," or "Don't shout at my daddy." And it's quite amusing that he just has fitted in completely with how we are. Again, if he gets annoyed, he will say that he wants us to leave, that this is his home, we are the ones who are going to have to go. That's how comfortable. You know, yeah. So yes, it's a long process, but it's worth it, and Kwame certainly fits in perfectly with our family. It's a very good choice.
Right. So do you actually identify the child you want before the process starts, or you go through the process first?
Yes, you go through the process first, and they will ask you what you're like, what your family life is like, and that kind of thing. And then they'll ask you what kind of a child you would be willing to adopt. You know, could you manage a child who, for example, had a disability or had a mental health problem or something like that? You make your, you know, you have to sit down and think about that. And then what happens is that once you go to a panel that approves you as an adoptive parent without any child in view, and then at that process you get sent lots of papers about lots of different children looking for adopted families, and then you go through those and decide which of those you think would be okay for you.
Okay. What you've mentioned quite a few different things within what you've mentioned about adopting, which I think is absolutely fantastic, because I'm writing mental notes seriously, because I've always wanted to adopt. So this is fantastic for someone like myself. But there's a couple of questions I want to ask in regards to financially. Is it something that hits on you as a big burden? Because some people think, oh, let's go into fostering because it's a money maker, but adopting you can't make money, and maybe when you go into adopting you've got to spend loads of money. What is it like financially?
Yeah, that's you know, I think fostering and adoption are two different things. You know, both of us work in education, so it's not that we wouldn't consider fostering, because, you know, we could offer a child that needs a foster family a home and look after them and help them, but that's not what we wanted. We wanted you know, a son or a daughter who would be part of our family, and who we wouldn't have a kind of a job type relationship with them. We didn't want to be paid to look after a child. Does it cost money? Well, children cost money. I mean, at the moment he's quite young, so he doesn't cost very much, but that moment is going to come, I'm sure, when he wants us to buy him trainers for £150, or, you know, wants to go on holiday with his friends and wants us to pay for it. You know, I know that moment will come. At the moment he costs whatever a child costs, doesn't eat a lot. But, you know, we maybe pay for music lessons, we pay for after school club. It's not a massive drain, but yes, you've got to have enough money to look after yourself and look after another little
So you wouldn't
person.
say it's different financially from having a child, full stop?
There's no special cost that's attached to adoption. What we did have is, for the first 6 months that he was with us, he had quite an intense program with CAMS, the Children and Adolescent Mental Health Service.
Because people say, can you really love the children if they're not from you and they're not your own? And I always say that love is thicker than blood. The feeling of actually finally becoming a mother is almost indescribable. It's just everything. It was everything I wanted and more.
Kwame considers us his mummy and daddy. I mean, we weren't sure how that would work out, and it's different for different people. Like, I've got friends who've adopted somebody, and it took her daughter about a year before she called her mummy. With Kwame, the first time he saw us, he said, "Are you my new mummy and daddy?" You know, I mean, even the whole concept of my new mummy, I didn't have that phrase in my mind at all, but he clearly did. And for a long time, he would just say, "Oh, you know, my new mummy and daddy." And then he said, "Well, I suppose I've been with you for a while now, so I don't have to call you new anymore, do I? You're just mummy and daddy." And it slipped straight into it. I can't think of any disadvantages of adopting a child. I really can't. You know, if you want to be a parent.
That's a quick one.
Yeah,
you've mentioned about, you know, adopting a child, how it's like having your own child. But when that child, the other side of it, for example, is when a child gets older, let's say they turn 18, and then they come to you and say, I want to know where my birth biological parents are. Have you thought about how you would deal with a situation like that? And in some cases, even though the child, we've seen examples of those where they may be grateful for everything that you've done for them, but they're just at that point where they feel they want to get to know their biological parents.
Yeah. Are children ever grateful for what their parents do for them?
Good question.
I think they think, you're my mum, you're my dad, that was your job, you did what you were meant to do. I don't know, I mean, I guess there are different sort of cultural ways of understanding that. Actually, Kwame has about 3 sisters, and he's very well aware of those sisters. He's written to one of them. It was a beautiful letter that they exchanged, in which they've agreed at 18 they're going to go and have ice cream at a trampoline park in London. So I was very conscious. All his sisters are older than him, and whenever he sees a sort of an older schoolgirl, he would just sort of stop and look at her lovingly, and he would boast about playing with the older children at school. And there's a bit of me, I'm very well aware that he can't see them for reasons of his own security. So I know that he misses them, and I know he's very and I know he's very aware of them. Increasingly less so as he becomes more attached to us, I think. So yes, we're ready for that, and we expect that to happen, and it's his right. You want to meet people who look like you, don't you? You want to look around and think, oh yes, that's why my lips are that shape, or my nose is like that. Oh, I can see that, and it's normal.
I mean, on that note, what advice would you give to anyone, particularly from our communities, the African and Afro-Caribbean community, that may be considering adoption as an option? What advice would you give to them?
I would say do it. I think that, do it, if nothing else, secure in the knowledge that you can have such an overwhelmingly positive impact on this child's life. There are so many members of our community who, whether it's lost or whether it's just not given the nurturing that they needed at some point, that there are so many people in the world who are like that, and this is an opportunity for you to really make a positive difference. Do it because it's an enhancement to your life. It's lovely having that little boy who, if he's frightened, comes in the middle of the night and wants to cuddle mummy and daddy, and and to be in their bed and cuddle them. It's lovely, and who puts, you hold his little hand and walk to school with him. It's a really lovely experience that I think we have benefited from a great deal. I'm looking forward to him being a young man. It's really worth it.
The experience was as if I brought my baby home, and I went through all of that feeling of motherhood, and I can't imagine life without him.
If you have the room in your heart, and if you have the desire, you have an opportunity to completely change someone's life.
The assessment process was intrusive, yes, but we were told the reasons why. You obviously have to talk about your life story and why, in terms of the motivation to adopt. You're taking on a responsibility for a child. It is really important that we're open and honest.
It's not an easy thing to do. It's the right thing to do, and it's the best thing to do, and it's a fantastic thing to do.
Just go for it. Don't let anything hold you back.
Bouncing off what Cordelia had asked before, about him asking questions when he's older, I think it's going to boil down to the nature and nurture thing. So his genes are there, they're there. We can't take them out. But the nurture you give to him, I think, will make a huge difference. That love and that care and that, lovely environment you're creating for him to grow up in. It's a constant fight between nature and nurture, but I think nurture has a strong hand. So
Yeah.
I say, well done, well done. I know it's going to be good.
There are so many children really wanting somebody to come and just to love them.
I'm honoured that you've been here with us. We wish both your husband and yourself all the best of luck. You don't even need luck. I'm sure you guys have got it in the bag.
And Kwame, of course.
oh, I was getting to Kwame as well. But yeah, you guys as parents, just like, thank you for doing this, first of all, because we know it's a rarity that Black people, especially in the UK, do adopt. So thank you for that, both of you, for doing that already and making a fabulous job with it and taking this time here with us. And Kwame, we know you're there and we love you too. And thank you to your mummy and daddy.
Thankfully, he's in bed. Otherwise, I promise you, you would have met him by now. He wouldn't let this go if he was up. It's been really good talking to you guys, and thank you very much for the invitation. And, you know, I really do hope that if anybody is just on the verge thinking, should I, shouldn't I, do it. Make the phone call, pay the visit, and just do it, because you won't regret it.
Amazing.
Family is everything.
Family is love.
Family is acceptance. Family is identity. Family is belonging.